Somewhere in Greece there was a cursed creature hiding among the many monsters that haunted the nightmares of the ancient Greeks. This creature was surely one of the most feared. Many brave heroes had dared to hunt it, but none had ever returned. It was said that this being was so horrible that no one could get close to it. Its name was Medusa. However, Medusa had not always been this way. Once, she had been one of the most beautiful women to ever walk the earth. She was born from the union of two primordial sea deities, Perseus and Ceto, and when she came into the world she was like any other child. Medusa had two sisters, Steno and Euryale, who were Gorgons, creatures that combined the traits of women and snakes. From childhood, Medusa was devoted to the goddess Athena. When playing with her sisters, she would always pretend to be Athena, while her sisters preferred to play the role of the villains. Together with them, there was also a boy named Perseus, who was Medusa's best friend. The two were inseparable. Medusa grew and became more beautiful every day. Her beauty made the young Perseus an easy target for Eros, the god of love. Eventually, he confessed his love for Medusa. The young woman loved him deeply, but her dream was to become a priestess of Athena, and she could not give in to the temptations of love. When she reached the appropriate age, the young woman began her training to become a priestess of Athena. The temple's apprentices were required to maintain immaculate conduct and discipline. Every action could reflect on the reputation of the goddess. One of the primary requirements to become a priestess of Athena was absolute purity. The girls had to mirror Athena herself, and thus, they were required to remain virgins, just as the goddess never yielded to the influence of Eros and Aphrodite. Medusa became a perfect priestess, perhaps even too perfect. The rituals conducted by Medusa continued to attract more followers, captivated by the beauty of this young woman. Medusa had flowing, beautiful hair, and her movements hypnotized those who watched her. One naive man dared to say that Medusa's hair was more beautiful than Athena's. The goddess, from the top of Mount Olympus, noticed the disturbance in one of her temples. She realized that many were not there to worship her but rather to see the charming priestess. Athena resisted the temptation to punish those who shifted their attention from her to Medusa. The goddess knew that, although this was wrong, the young priestess could not be blamed. After all, she was simply doing her job in the best way possible. Meanwhile, on Olympus, Poseidon noticed the goddess's unease. The sea god and Athena had a fierce rivalry, as they both contested for the right to be the protector of the capital of Attica. The goddess had emerged victorious in this dispute, and in honor of her new role as protector, the city had been renamed Athens. Poseidon did not take kindly to this defeat and waited for the right moment to seek revenge. The god realized that Athena was focused on her most beautiful and graceful priestess, so he decided that this young woman could serve as a tool for his revenge. Poseidon plotted to tarnish the reputation of Athena by striking at her most immaculate follower. Meanwhile, Medusa continued to live her life normally, unaware that she was being watched by the gods of Olympus. One day, while walking along the shore, Poseidon lay in wait, hidden among the waves. The god emerged from the sea in all his glory. He used his charm to seduce the priestess of Athena, but Medusa, although dazzled by his brilliance, did not forget her vows and rejected Poseidon's advances. Poseidon did not accept her rejection and grabbed Medusa's arm. She reacted quickly, hitting him hard in the face, managing to break free. Medusa ran to the temple of Athena, the only place where she felt safe. But Poseidon, consumed by lust, pursued her. As he was about to reach her, the brave Perseus stepped between the god and Medusa. Despite his courage, Perseus was no obstacle for the god, who, with one strike, sent him flying. Medusa entered the temple of Athena and knelt before her statue. When she heard the heavy footsteps of the sea god approaching, she prayed for protection. The god reached the young woman, who was now trapped, and she cried for help. Poseidon put her on the altar of the goddess. The god left the temple satisfied. His revenge had gone better than expected. Not only had he corrupted Athena's best priestess, but he had also desecrated her beloved temple, which she cherished for its purity. Medusa felt ashamed. She felt dirty. When the goddess Athena took the form of her statue and reproached her furiously, she said that if it hadn't been for her striking appearance, which distracted men from the path of virtue and purity, and for her vanity that made her irresistible, none of this would have happened. Her temple would have remained untainted, and her honor would not have been tarnished. Athena decided to punish the now impure priestess for the dishonor of the temple, which Medusa was meant to protect. Later that night, Perseus regained consciousness after the violent blow and began searching for Medusa. He heard her crying in the temple of Athena. When he arrived, he found Medusa sitting on the ground, weeping in the dark. She asked him not to come closer because she did not want him to see her in that state. Worried, Perseus approached her anyway, offering words of comfort. But when he touched her shoulder, a serpent bit his hand. Medusa turned around, frightened, and the two young people stared at each other. Perseus instantly became a statue of stone. In despair, Medusa wept, embracing the statue of her best friend. To avoid hurting anyone, she fled, but during her escape, she was spotted by some city dwellers. Those who looked into her eyes turned to stone. Word spread about the horrible creature with snake hair, and a group was formed to hunt it. These men were found days later, completely petrified, their faces twisted with terror. Medusa had never intended to harm anyone. She just wanted to defend herself from an unjust attack. She decided to hide in a region abandoned by its inhabitants for centuries. There, she found an ancient, ruined temple and made it her refuge. Many warriors attempted to capture the Gorgon for glory, but none ever returned. Isolated, Medusa continued to lose the humanity she had left. Her reputation as a terrible monster became legendary. Medusa survived by hunting small animals and rodents. One of her prey led her to an unexpected reunion. Medusa encountered an ancient bust of the goddess Athena. She realized that this ruined temple had been one of the first buildings to shelter her true deity. This discovery revived her old habits, and Medusa began to care for the temple, glorifying the goddess's splendor. The favored daughter of Zeus, the supreme god of Olympus, did not fail to notice Medusa's honorable action. She realized that Medusa's acts could not be justified by vanity, as no one could witness them, and she felt pity for the cruel and irreversible punishment she had inflicted on the girl. While performing one of her many rituals, Medusa heard the steps of another intruder. The beastly side of Medusa resurfaced, and she prepared to face the new adversary. The audacious warrior walked cautiously through the creature's dwelling, while she silently approached him. She was stunned when she saw that he carried the shield of Athena, the sacred aegis once belonging to Zeus. The aegis was so shiny that it reflected like a mirror, and thanks to the reflection, the warrior realized the monster was behind him. With a swift blow, the young warrior severed Medusa's head from her body. Medusa was dead, and her blood began to drip onto the ground. The anonymous warrior would later be known throughout history as Perseus. After completing his task, Perseus returned Athena's aegis and also handed her Medusa's head. But few knew that Medusa carried the semi-divine blood of Poseidon. From her blood, the warrior Chrysaor was born, the golden sword warrior. Another magnificent creature emerged, the winged horse, Pegasus. The most innocent of all creatures, Pegasus embodied the original purity, and it had been stolen from its mother. Many believe that Athena's assistance to Perseus, by giving him her precious shield, was another act of retribution against Medusa. In truth, the goddess simply wished to liberate the girl from the terrible existence that had been unjustly imposed upon her. Athena honored Medusa by adding her head to her shield. The image of the faithful priestess was now immortalized beside the goddess she had loved so much.